Welcome. This week we learn about the spies. Shlach. Moshe sends spies into the land. 12 men, each of the leaders of the tribes, the 12 tribes, to go in there, not so clandestinely as you would think. You want to go in there in the shadows, but these were 12 dignified people that went in there to scout out the land, more so than to spy on their weaknesses and to make it difficult, to make it easier to conquer. They were there to report on what awaits them. They've been traveling 40 years in the desert. They wanted to settle in the land. The people wanted to settle. The leaders had a different agenda. The leaders were very spiritual people who wanted to maintain a spiritual life. When they didn't have to work the land consumes the people they proclaimed. Remember when Rashbi comes out of the cave, his eyes ablaze, burning up the crops of the workers in the field. How could you be doing this when there's a world of terror to learn? You can have your needs met by others. Meanwhile, Rashbi was in the cave, running away. Yet this was still his approach, and he couldn't believe. Now the Lugborn, we learn about this every year. These 12 leaders, these spies, these scouts, gave back a report. Yes, the land is great, but do you know what is guarding that? Look at these magnificent fruit we brought back. We need all 10 men to carry. Grapes the size of watermelons. Because giants live there. To conquer that, it's impossible, they said. To go into the physical land and still be holy, to enter the physical world and come out on top. Let's not take that confrontation. It's not necessary to act, to do mitzvahs in a physical land, and therefore be caught up with the physical needs. But let's fulfill the spiritual equivalent of all those things, and we'll stay here in the desert. Hashem has no problem keeping us here. He's not going to run out of electricity. So they wanted to scare the people into staying in the desert. Two of the spies of the 12, two of them were good, Joshua and Caleb, proclaiming that the land is very good, it's worth the risks, and you know what? Hashem has protected us thus far, and He's going to help us there too. There were 31 kings in the land of Canaan. 31 people worthy to be counted amongst those who had palaces in the Holy Land. There were only 7 lands there. 31 kings with palaces there. There were other kings, I learned recently today, I think. But they weren't counted in the 31. So to make it on the map, yeah, that's the same gematria, incidentally, as God's name, Kale, Aleph Lamed, 31. So a spy can help us learn how to conquer if you need to do that. If you feel like you had a need, you didn't have Hashem necessarily protecting you, then you could be scared out of it by the same people who reported about that. Their true reason, though, and what they de-emphasized, was the role to simply talk up the purpose of going there. To tell them the incredible land that awaits them, so that they could go in there in the proper mindset, in a happy frame of mind. Let's invite a few regulars and continue. So if you focus on all the brilliant outcome of success and conquest here, and the enemy falls into the sidelines. When a person's lit with joy, being uplifted with great desire. I'm just translating on the fly. They went into the land to scout it out, to know what kind of approach they should have in bringing out all of its best qualities. The land of Israel is supposed to have the best of all the lands. It sounds like the way Adam Rishon was created. The first man was created with the earth from all parts of the land, of the earth. So in this final sikha, this Dvar Malchus, this talk of the Rebbe, this final one on this topic, the focus is on distinguishing the spies that Moshe sends and the spies that were sent, as mentioned in the Haftarah, the after reading, of Joshua sending in 2 spies, not 12. It's enough here to have the polarities reflected as opposed to 12. You take the 2 out of the 12, the Rebbe says here, and you're left with the 10. It's a full spectrum. The 12 represents all the angles, all the perspectives. 2, Joshua sends 2 spies. He's looking at the much more objective vision. It's going in there after you've already had the first report, when you could take away what Joshua and Kalev purported, which was, this is something worthwhile. This is a conquest that is worthwhile, intended to bring into a state of joy, and with that joy, march in with confidence. So they send 2 spies. They go to Rachav. At the gate, you had someone who was familiar with the people inside the city and the people on the outside walls. So Rachav, the chief prostitute of the world, would meet with 31 kings and all their princes. And she did this for 40 years, from 10 years old to 50. Yeshua marries her. She converts at 50 years old and dedicates her entire life to the Jewish people. A total Baal Tshuva from each extreme. And she is the informant, the sole source of information that the Jewish people relied on in finally marching in the times of Yeshua after 40 years in the desert. They pursue the conquest and they take on Jericho first. They actually enter with a miraculous victory. They blow the shofar, the walls fall, they circle 7 times. The walls that were impenetrable and totally Lord of the Rings, Lahavdil, collapse and they march in. The rest of the wars that they had was not miraculous. They had to welcome. They had to actually man up without the superpowers. And there was a 7-year conquest and 7 years to settle. So it took 14 years basically to start living there, living the life. So unlike Moshe's spies, Moses sends 12 spies, they go the length and the breadth of the land, covering all the territories. They just speak to one person. They speak to Rachav, and she tells them, people are terrified of you, the Jewish people. They've noted your miraculous escape from slavery and the pursuit of the Egyptians and how you defeated them again. And they're terrified. So because they're terrified, you're going to just march in here and they're going to be quaking in their boots. Here the emphasis is on the effect of having first knowledge of what awaits them, the good that awaits them, not the enemy that they have to sort of bypass. And this is a type of joy that's beyond faith in the sense that it's much more internalized. It's not something that's faith-based. It's something that's felt. It's mitzad tachta in the Rebbe's terminology, which means from the perspective of the lowest frequency, which is where we are whenever we are. The lowest possible default state of mind. Now, what was the state of mind of Moshe's spies that he sends? It's a fascinating acronym brought out from the description that Rashi gives, the classic literal interpretation. Why would Moshe send out spies that are renegades? And the answer is that at that time when Moshe sent them, they were ksherim, they were kosher Jews. Which means, in what sense are they kosher? They are kemetze shalol rav. Kosher is an acronym for the words like one who exploits bounty in mass. So someone who shake their booty out all the way from a successful campaign of war, and it pays. So, and that was something that was in the hands of the enemy at first, and is taken in war. And this is, each word here the Rebbe analyzing, we're making an acronym of kosher, meaning like someone who takes the spoils of the land in war. So the first word, kemetze, like someone who extracts. Metze means something that's found. So it's a discovery, it's a surprise. That is that the shalol, the next word in this acronym, shalol means spoils of war, is infinitely greater than any effort that you had to put in. And that's why it's called shalol rav, a bountiful, to have a bountiful booty sounds like something that Spinal Tap would sing about. Meaning endless bounty. Okay? So this is the hint that the words Rashi uses, at that time they were kosher, because the intent of their mission to spy out the land, to scout out the land more accurately, as a introduction to the conquest of all the Jewish people, that they should go with simcha ubechefetz gadol, with great joy and desire. Hu inin bir hatachton. That's what it means to have rectified. When you've rectified your frequency, your standpoint, and you do that in a way, kemetze shalol rav, like someone who's just won the lottery, that's kosher. Shazui calls the way to kibush knis lar. So this is the general intent of the conquest and the settling of the land, or the entering the land, Al-Nas la'asek b'birur ha'aretz. That was for the whole point of confronting the earth, the earthiness, the mundane, and rectifying it so that it's not any impediment. We're going to see a very fascinating allusion to this in the second set of spies that were sent, the later group, times of Yeshua, Joshua, that interestingly, he's sending Pinchas, who is from the tribe of Levi. He was a Kohen. So what's he doing as part of the war machine? The tribe of Levi does not go to war. They don't also work the land. They weren't given any portion of the land. So what's Pinchas doing on the front lines? This is James Bond, Mahavdil, hiding from the enemy soldiers, as the story tells in Tanakh, in the Bible. What's he doing? Fighting. He's supposed to be a man of peace, a man of chesed, Kohen, from the tribe of Levi, who's the teacher class. They don't get their hands dirty. They're not even given any land. So it looks like they're lacking something, but it's not. The land was, in a sense, or suspected of being a threat, and therefore they couldn't be tied up with the mundane. They had to be priestly. Just they didn't have spiked bracelets. I'm thinking about, the Judas priest. That sounds very goyish. So when everything is rectified, then you've accomplished something, Kemleitz Shol Rav, like discovering an endless bounty that's beyond anything that you did to deserve it. When you've done the work, you've done your part as Scafia, you pushed away the inappropriate path, and you've transformed that temptation, that darkness, into light, which is the infinite light of Hashem in the place of darkness, and the sitra achra, the sort of misuse of all the physical world in its entirety, brings out divine awareness, more so in a way that is supreme, Eiz v'yisra in er min ha'cheshach, when it comes from darkness. One does not put themselves in a dangerous position, but when we're flung into a dangerous position, welcome. When we're flung into a dangerous position, then you have to come out on top and you have to benefit from that. It has to make you stronger. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That's the birur, that's the rectification, that's the correction. A lot of this is, I'm skipping stuff because it's basically been dealt with. And I'm going to focus now on the fact that it's Pinchas from the tribe of Levi. The reason why Yeshua sends him, even though the Levi's not supposed to be part of the military, as Rambam writes, why did the tribe of Levi not merit the land of Israel and the spoils that conquest produces with their brothers? Because they have been set aside, designated as those who are servants of Hashem, to minister to him and to teach his way, his straight ways, and the ways of his laws, his righteous laws, to the masses. So it's a teacher class. As it says, Yera Mishpatach L'Yaakov L'Seros Chol Yisrael. teaching your laws to Yaakov and your Torah, your teachings to the Jewish people. Therefore, they are set aside from the ways of the world. They do not wage war like the rest of the Jewish people. They do not inherit the land. Welcome. Rather, they are the army of God. As it says, Baruch Hashem Chelai, God blesses his army. V'hu Baruch Hu Zeicha Lahem, and God is their merit, gives them merit. As it says, Ani Chalkecha V'nachal Asacha, I am your inheritance, God tells us, tribe of Levi. But in the future to come, the Rebbe says, since that in those times, he's quoting Rambam again from the end of his magnum opus, Mishnah Torah. He says, in those days, knowledge, which doesn't mean knowledge like you know a lot of things, but it means presence of mind, awareness, the ability to connect, thank you, to connect with what you're thinking about, to be present, and wisdom and truth will be plentiful, as it says, because the earth will be full of the awareness of Hashem. To the point that the entire planet will be devoted to the awareness of Hashem alone, the sole occupation of the world, as it says, because the earth will be filled with the awareness of God, like water fills the ocean bed. Lo yetzarech behavdallah d'shevet Levi, in the future to come, since the sole occupation of the world will be in this singular, devoted focus of awareness of Hashem, the tribe of Levi will not be set aside for a special task to be distant from the ways of the world, because then everything will have attained its ultimate perfection. Therefore, the tribe of Levi will also inherit a portion of the land. The land is no longer an impediment, it's completely transparent. Divinity shines forth through the fact that our presence of mind is going to be synonymous with divine awareness. That's what our focus is, and nothing can stop us. The farming of our fields is knowing Hashem through manual labor. There's no difference. It's all, the divine is transcending the wisdom of the Torah, just as much as Hashem transcends the physical mitzvah of the Torah. There is a creator of the whole system, and the awareness of that can be equally attained through mundane tasks as well as more sort of sacrificial. Welcome. That sounds like you're going to offer a goat in some little teepee room. We used to have a chapel in the shul or the synagogue or whatever it was. They had a chapel, this sort of like insular room with no windows, and like it looked a bit gothic. A shul is supposed to have windows. You're not supposed to feel claustrophobic. That's what a tallis is for. Wrap yourself up in Hashem. So therefore, we have a foreshadowing of that. Pinchas from the tribe of Levi goes on, and you know what? You don't have the 12 pieces of the pie anymore. You have 13. It's not because you're now adding the tribe of Levi, because in fact, Levi is in place of Yosef's 2 tribes. Ephraim and Manasseh came out of Yosef. Joseph has 2 children. He, in special honor, he is the firstborn from Rachel, his mother. So he's split off in 2. They lose that extra status in the future to come. Remember, the crown shifts from Malchus Beis Yosef, and in fact, like the Mashiach ben Yosef, it goes to Mashiach ben David, and you have a descendant of King David, which is Mashiach. Mashiach will actually be the 13th piece of the pie. So you have Levi coming in, but in his place, Ephraim and Manasseh squished together, Yosef gets a tribe, you still have 12. Mashiach gets the 13th as his own portion. For him, V'davar chayk lei ulevanov ad olam. This is a decree that he should get the 13th portion of everything. For him and his children forevermore. As is explained in the prophecy of Yechezkel, V'hanesar l'nasi, the remains go to the Nasi, the leader, teaching us that he would take one of the tribes. Mashiach becomes at the status of, let's say, Yosef, not Yosef loses that, like Yaakov, to have, or at least, one of his children, Yaakov's children, Mashiach, who was born long later. So in effect, Yehuda splits into two tribes. Yosef sucks in a tribe. He had two, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now it's called Yosef. He lost the crown or the scepter, changed his hands, and Yosef became aware of that. You look at Parshas. I don't know, I can't remember. When Yehuda confronts Yosef, and basically they figure out that Yosef was in power. Then Yehuda will take power later, Yigash, pardon me. So Yosef sucks in a tribe. He loses the firstborn status because the firstborn gets Pishnayim, he gets twice. So he had two portions of tribal territorial division. Yehuda now gets two. Why? Why two? Because he has his tribe of Yehuda. And Mashiach is like a spark of that takes his own portion. A future dynasty that takes on its own status as if it was an original child of Yaakov Avinu. Fascinating. Remember, Mashiach is actually higher than all of his predecessors, including Moshe Rabbeinu, including Yaakov. So that itself is a fantastic idea that in the end of this incredible history, this biblical epic story of a family that was truly righteous, at the end of time, a descendant is promised to have a soul that just makes it impossible not to be the greatest person that ever walked the earth. And that's the end of the Parsha for it. So I don't know, I think I covered 20 pages there. Did it make sense? I'm going to read what you're writing. Priest of war, I've heard it said of Pinchas. Wow! Priest of war, Eva teaches us. Priest of war, I've never heard that expression. Kohen Milchama. We were called the Mamlachas Kohanim, a kingdom of priests. Here we're priests of war. Well, we do Yisrael, the sort of advanced name of the Jewish people, Israel, is Sarisa im Elokim Betuchel. Remember, Sarah, we have the same name, Sarah Yisrael. It's the same thing, Sarisa. You've confronted, you've excelled over. Remember, Sarai, Sarisa, same letters. It's a confrontation and a victory. I forget exactly where I was going with that. Okay, priests of war. I forgot where I was going with that. There's something about Yaakov. Yisrael. Thank you. I needed that. Night share is different than a morning share. I have been able to do the morning share. It's very sad. If you guys would dub a little bit more for me, maybe we can get that back popping. I just did it every day for like 3 years. What a gratitude I have for that opportunity. I wish I would still have it. I thought that was interesting. It says Mashiach's destined to have children. It's not like, I don't think it like has to be that it means that he has to have children. It just says most probably he'll have children, and does that mean that you don't really, the child doesn't really own it until they inherit it. And for sure Mashiach has to be eternal because he brings in the age of eternity. It's hard to understand that. I've seen that phrase, I think, in at least one other case. And it's in the case of the dynasty passing on. But I had an argument with the AI about that. So they tell me it's true, it's not true. You just say, but doesn't it say it here? And they say, oh, I'm so sorry, you're right. I'm only an infant stage of my development. The AI confesses on every chance to excuse its inane, oversights. You just reminded. You just told me 3 paragraphs ago something the exact opposite. I mean, you're supposed to be smarter than people. I mean, how can they be so forgetful? Literally, if you open a new tab or something like that, or if you go a few entries down, they forget the earlier. You cannot program the things there. Maybe they put some kind of code in there so you cannot program them, because otherwise it would become your little pet. You know, when I walk into the room, bark and beg for a Scooby biscuit. What do they call them? A Scooby treat. Scooby-Doo. The king's portion is limited, and he is not allowed to acquire anything more than his portion. I think it's mentioned in the prophet, that's also in the Chumash. Thank you. It talks about the source for these mitzvahs, the mitzvahs in the Torah, that a king cannot have too many wives, which means a whole bunch. And you can't have too many horses, which is also a nice size Ferrari. But if they take it for the kingdom, for the glory of the nation, it's not considered over the top. It's only if they put in their private, like when you go to the 7-Eleven and order a slushie. Like, what are you going to use to pay for that? You got to take off like a nugget from your crown. Hey, Kim, welcome. Take off like a ruby and here, keep the change. Give me the slushie. No, it's not for my kid. It's not for the dog. It's sometimes, you know, you take off the cape with the fur and you just go for a slushie. And I would never do that because holy moly. But in the 70s, you didn't know about sugar and all that. Egg white, egg yellow, I used to say. Like, I was brought up, you have to eat only the egg yellow. Cut away the white, and now they reverse it. Just eat, I always thought that was a nice paradigm for the fickleness of science, and the fickleness of AI for that matter. Didn't you just tell me 3 lines ago that originally I checked out AI before I left it because on my first conversation with AI was a bad shit. I asked it its name, and it says, what do you mean I can't have a name on AI? It's like, why you ask my name? And it's Peli. If you want to know my name, Peli. That's what the angel tells Shimshon's mother. Or Shimshon's father, rather. You want to know my name? It's Peli. It's a wonder. Thank you. How many of those do you get per stream? Because they're really cool. I know sometimes you get people putting like fireworks up in the background. The little kids know how to hack the system. So my first shidduch with the AI, like just trying to check it out, I asked it its name and it couldn't tell me any name. So I hung up on him. That's ridiculous. You're gonna try and sell me ducking services, and you don't even have a name. You just want to know, why do they call me every week? Same guy with the same voice, the same accent. Every week, ask me if I need my ducks cleaned. Is he gonna think that I've like all the pollution from the forest fire made it so that now my ducks, finally I'm gonna decide, yes, I'm gonna do a favor to my landlord and clean his ducts. So when he moves in here, the ducts are all in line. To mix a metaphor or a cocktail. That would be probably more, this water is not cutting it. I couldn't think of any reason to make it for bringing tonight, so that, okay, I could have practiced what I preach and said, Mashiach's here, let's make a big party. Things would be easier. It's probably what we'd be doing right now, right? It's been a tough year for a lot of people I know. When I look in the mirror and around me, sad life for a lot of people, a lot of tragedy and grief. I just turned to the words now, maybe it's relevant. There's no man, no person that doesn't have its time. And this is before the time of, what's his name? Why am I thinking Walmart? You know the guy. So this is an answer to the mission, of this espionage that we started the class with, this week's parsha. That if they had the proper intent and exerted themselves, it did accomplish what was intended. It's just a matter of time to see the fruits. How long is the thing going to incubate before it pops out? That's why Mashiach's the leper that's changing his bandages really quick. Because he's anxious to say, okay, they're ready, finally they're ready, I'm coming. Whatever says that the world is ready, therefore Mashiach, who was ready before the world was ready, is ready. It's simply a matter of welcoming Mashiach into your doors, into your life. Have a great day.